More on that. Let's bring in the chief strategist, the communications director for the Republican National Committee, Sean Spicer, who's with us as well. Sean, thanks very much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
What's your reaction to this whole plagiarism, Melania? Because I know you must be upset that instead of focusing in on those powerful speeches that we heard all of last night, they were well delivered, the production, the stagecraft, all of that was first rate, but then all of a sudden the comparisons to Michelle Obama's speech 8 years ago and this speech by Melania Trump last night, all of a sudden that's sort of dominating the political news on this day.
Well, I agree with Sam. The speech was phenomenal. Her presence, her delivery was first rate, and I think a lot of people who've never probably heard Melania Trump last night were unbelievably blown away and impressed with it. When it comes to the speech, let's actually put this in perspective, and Sam did a really good job of laying the table. We had a 2,000-word statement. We're talking about 70 words, 3 passages. Okay, and this idea of plagiarism, if we want to talk about it, let's talk to it. Melania Trump said, you work hard for what you get in life. John Legend said, work hard to be anything you want in life. Kid Rock said, work hard to be anything you want in life. Melania Trump said, the strength of your dreams and willingness to work for them. Twilight Sparkle from My Little Pony said, this is your dream. Anything you can do in your dreams, you can do now. I mean, if we want to take a bunch of phrases and run them through a Google and say, hey, who else has said them, I can come up with a list in 5 minutes. And that's what this is. I mean, it's sad that we've taken this amazing moment with the world introduction of Melania Trump and gone through and allowed the Clinton campaign to say, hey, we Googled a bunch of phrases and matched it up to 3 things that Mrs. Obama said.
Because the similarities were pretty stark.
But you just heard, look, I just quoted Twilight Sparkle from My Little Pony. She said something similar, too. So did Mrs. Obama plagiarize her? I would never say that. But these are common phrases that were used over and over again, and I think it's an attempt, and I give the Clinton campaign credit, because they did a really good job of taking 3 phrases, going out there and trying and matching them up. I think Mrs. Obama gave a great speech. I think Melania Trump hit it out of the park. And to diminish it like this is sad, because you can go down a list of people that have said exactly the same thing over and over again.
With the Clinton campaign, there was a whole bunch of people who recognized it. There was one guy on Twitter who's going to be interviewed later on CNN who saw the similarities, and everybody else started to pick them up.
In the same way that you could have made the similarities to Obama, you can make them to House of Pain, Public Enemy, Ice-T, Akon, John Legend. I mean, at some point, it's either everybody's plagiarizing each other, but you have 3 common phrases that were used that, I mean, if you start saying, my word is my bond, for goodness sake, I've used that a bunch of times, too. You've probably used that. So here's
the question. Your boss, Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National, he said the speechwriter who did it should be fired.
No, he didn't. Here's what he said. Again, if you found the speechwriter, if you found that your speechwriter had done that, would you fire them? Probably, but again, it depends on the circumstances and how these things are written. So the question that Reince was asked is, if your speechwriter plagiarized, would you fire him? The answer is yes. And I think if the speechwriter for the Trump campaign had done that, they would be fired. But they didn't. So it was a silly hypothetical question, and he answered it. So to suggest that this is plagiarism, again, if we want to go down the list of people who have used the exact same phrases, we can go through over and over again.
So you're saying it was just a coincidence that what Michelle Obama said 2008 and what Melania Trump said last night just happened to be almost exactly the same words in those 3 passages?
If you're going to say that, then I think we say that Michelle Obama, again, I've got a list of people who said the exact same phrase prior to Mrs. Obama using it. So at some point, either everybody's plagiarizing everybody, or this is a silly exercise pushed by the Clinton campaign.
And so you think that this whole issue is over with? Nobody should be fired?
No. I think you get fired when you do something wrong. And if there's evidence that something was done wrong, then someone should get fired. Otherwise, I think that we should start looking at the substance of the speech and saying that Mrs. Trump delivered a phenomenal speech. She should be very proud of it. I think the world got introduced to an amazing woman who's going to be the next First Lady.
You've heard these reports that Donald Trump is furious.
I'm sure he is furious. His wife delivered an unbelievable speech. He flew down here to introduce him. You could see the love that they have together when he got out on stage. He was so proud of her, and to see this happen to her speech like this, to the introduction of the world, I'd be furious too. I can't believe he's not going, blown up right now, because I would be, as a husband, if someone did that to my wife's introduction to the world stage, I'd be furious as well.
Because she's apparently very upset herself.
Of course. Again, why wouldn't you be upset?
Don't you think someone on the staff should have checked the speech, just to double check, to make sure, there are all these opportunities to go back and take a look at her speech, to make sure that there were no allegations that could come up of plagiarism? In other words, the vetting of her speech,
but again, I just read you phrases.
But it could have been better, right?
I don't know. I think she did a phenomenal job.
She did an amazing job. There's no doubt about that. But the vetting of the text.
Yes, she could have said, instead of saying "my word is my bond," she could have said "the word of mine is your." I mean, we're talking about word placement. This is silly. So I guess the answer is there are times when you probably go on air and give a similar report to something that was said on MSNBC or Fox. I don't think anyone turns around and says, Wolf, you said Donald Trump said the following tonight. That's exactly how Brett Baer phrased it. That would be insane. There are certain common phrases that we all use, and to suggest that somehow because you use the same exact common phrase as somebody else that you're lifting something from them is a little preposterous.
I know you got to run, but tonight, what's the main theme? What's the main hope for the convention on day 2?
Tonight, we're going to talk about putting America back to work, and I think you're going to hear a lot of the great speakers. Chris Christie, Ben Carson, you're going to hear Don Jr., Tiffany Trump. Again, part of the goal of this convention is we know that Donald Trump's an entertainer, a successful businessman, but to hear the father that he is, the family man that he is, the businessman that he is, and the relationships that he had. There's a reason people work for him for 20 and 30 years. It's because he's gracious, he's caring, and to peel back that image a little bit and let people know a little bit about more who he is going to be what you really get through tonight.
And I hope they're going through all those speeches and vetting them right now to make sure we don't have tomorrow when you come back here, we're going to have a similar conversation.
I'm sure.
Because you know that there are a lot of people out there that are going to be taking a close look at every paragraph.
And again, just one last thing. Mrs. Trump clearly knew she was on the world stage. 35, 40 million people watching her. Do you think that they wouldn't have thought, hey, look, I mean, she knew exactly what she was doing. If she was looking at a speech from somebody else, she would know that this is the world, that she was on the world stage. So I think the idea that it was lifted in any way doesn't even make logistical sense, or doesn't pass the logic.
Because everybody will be watching. I don't think, by the way, if somebody on her staff, one of the speechwriters, did that and plagiarized, I don't think she knew about it. I'm sure she had no idea that those words were similar to what Michelle Obama said 8 years ago. But we can leave it on that.
Thank you.
Sean, thanks very much for coming in.